So it's Jace here. I wanted to discuss potentially, as you know, we're a brand that work with elite lifestyle and competitors, and we're delving into the lifestyle side of things. So I wanted to talk about losing your first 10 pounds as a lifestyle client. And this video resonates if you have a coach and if you don't have a coach, and sort of understanding the methodology of what you can do yourself and what you can do if you have a coach. So using, for example, myself and a few ballpark figures that are easy to make sense of to help you understand this video. So losing your first 10 pounds as a lifestyle client, what is the first thing we tend to look at when building out packages? Or if I didn't have a coach, I'm going to talk in that perspective. The first thing I'd be looking at is my movement. So one, how much am I moving per day? Am I moving enough? Am I moving too little? They say the average person that works in an office moves about 4,000 to 5,000 steps per day. So essentially, if someone came to me and they were only moving 4,000 to 5,000 steps per day, the first thing we would do is increase their movement. Because I know when I start dieting and I increase my output and movement, one, I start to feel good. And again, if I'm doing movement upon weight before I've eaten or had a coffee, my cognitive function is sharper and better, and it sets up my digestion for meal one. So the first thing I'd be looking at is movement. And I always like a figure between 8 to 10K steps a day. I think that's a feasible amount of steps. Personally, myself, it makes me feel good when running a business to get up and do 1K steps before I have that meal one. Not saying that's the rule of thumb for everyone. So what I'd be doing is aiming for 8 to 10K per steps per day. I'd probably start with 8K. So if we then hit a plateau or hit a brick wall, we've got a bit of variance where we can manipulate and maneuver up steps. What would I say is the best way to track steps? An Apple Watch, a Whoop watch. Sometimes you can have your iPhone in your pocket, but it's not the most accurate form of tracking the steps. So that's just one of the tools I would use to help track your steps per day. And again, steps are a great tool. What I normally see is typically people will come to me, hey, bro, I want to get on a plan. I say, what's your steps over the week so I can work out an average? And what I'd see is Monday to Friday would have high steps. Saturday and Sunday, them steps would start to drop. Why would that be? Because typically people work Monday to Friday, so their activity output is slightly higher. Then on the weekend, when they're resting and not working, that activity drops. So if we start to say, if they're doing 8K steps Monday to Friday and 4K on a weekend, if we start by saying, let's do 8K steps across 7 days, that expenditure over the week's gone higher. And again, as we know, higher expenditure is going to help elicit fat loss. So the first thing we look at is steps. Secondly, we sort of look at the client's week and say, can we do cardio? And cardio, there's a cardio hierarchy in my opinion. Cardio is, we like light interval steady state cardio, what is known as LISS. So what I'd do is, you got your step count for the day, we'd look at your cardio over the week. So let's say for a ballpark figure, we're gonna deploy cardio Monday to Friday, so 5 days a week of cardio. So again, that's gonna increase your expenditure, that's gonna increase caloric burn if we're hitting the desired heart rate. So when we look at that, there's a few machines we sort of look at in the cardio hierarchy. At the top of the food chain for me is the Stairmaster. You burn the most amount of calories in the shortest amount of time. My rough ballpark figure I tell clients to aim for is 100 calories within 10 minutes, and that's a good figure that we sort of go for. Second in command, I would say the cross trainer burns a good amount of calories. Then third in command would say the treadmill, and I would say that's on par with the bike, and then we sort of got outdoor walk. So if a client came to me and they was not doing any movement, most likely I would put them on treadmill. 20 minutes per week, that gives us a variance to maneuver that up when we need to. For example, then 525s, then 625s, then 730s, and slowly push up that expenditure over a week. If a client came to me and we have now escalated them from 520 minutes to 620 minutes to 720 minutes and they were doing treadmill and they were still not losing weight, I would then swap the treadmill for the Stairmaster. Why would I be doing that? The intensity is higher on the Stairmaster. The caloric burn in the amount of time is greater. So that's gonna yield more caloric burn, bring us into a bigger deficit and help yield the rate of fat loss. So cardio is always a tool I use. So I always look at a client, and even if it's myself and I'm getting ready for a holiday, I look at steps, then I look at cardio, then I look at the cardio machine, and then like it says here, how can I make it harder? So going from the treadmill to the cross trainer, going from the cross trainer to the Stairmaster, which is the king of the food chain. And then say, for example, we're using an example, I'm someone now, I'm 110 kilos, my maintenance is 3,000 calories, and I wanted to put myself in a deficit of 300 calories. Potentially, how may I do this? I may look at my diet and say, well, 3,000 is my maintenance baseline. I'm gonna put myself in a 300 calorie deficit. I might start by doing this ballpark figure by putting myself in a 200 calorie deficit by doing cardio. So 20-minute Stairmaster, hence why I said cardio will start with 20 minutes on the stairs, and I might take 100 calories away from food. So that takes me out of my maintenance, which is 3,000 calories, into 2,700, which is gonna be my first dip into a deficit, which is going to help yield my fat loss. So there's many ways you can do it, or you could keep no cardio in and take the 300 calories from food. But again, food's a tool. I like to keep food high around training. I like my carbohydrates, they're an energy source and they help replenish glycogen after I train. Or again, we could keep the food at 3,000 calories and take 30 minutes of stairs. But I like to have a seesaw effect here. I like to take food down, push cardio up. And then in the reverse, I like to take cardio down and push food up when we're moving into a surplus. So we always look at this, and there's no right or wrong method. It's what suits you. I'm a cardio bunny. I'd rather eat more, but then expend a bit more as well. And that's pretty much how I'd achieve that 300 calories. However, if I wanted a greater rate of loss or a more aggressive rate of loss, because again, we're aiming to lose 10 pounds, I could come out the blocks harder and go into a 500 to 600 calorie deficit. However, this first week, I might go into a 300 calorie deficit. That might only drop me a few pounds in the first week, which is absolutely what we expect, just by solidifying a routine, just by putting some cardio in, just by going into a deficit. And again, remember, increasing steps. People overlook them, but steps are important. So remembering that as well. Or essentially, you know, we might drop in that first week a small amount, because again, when we're back in a routine and we're training, we've got on a fixed training plan, we potentially might be signaling signs of muscular inflammation. So that big drop we're expecting might not happen straight away. And that's what you need to realize. Sometimes you'll go into a deficit and you might not drop the amount you expected to drop in the first week due to just muscular inflammation from getting back into a training routine, having muscle soreness, DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, and just holding a bit of water from an inflammatory response from training. So what I would say there is don't panic. I would run that deficit for another week, and then I'd look at adding sort of ballpark figure between 75 and 150 calorie deficit. And then that's gonna probably take us to about 2,650 calories. And then things will definitely start to move. What changes would I make if we stall? So we've had 2 to 3 weeks on this diet. We've dropped, and then we've hit a brick wall. We then start looking at other tools we can use to manipulate it. And this is when we start to look at thermogenic fat burners. So over-the-counter fat burners, or potentially we could talk about under-the-counter fat burners such as clenbuterol. But we'd be looking at over-the-counter fat burners. And I like to use these and look at the term I like to use. And the reason I personally like to use some fat burners early on is because I look at energy balance. I don't want us expending too much energy doing cardio flat out from the start, when we can use some thermogenic fat burners. That's something that can increase our body temperature, increase our heart rate, and elicit that rate of fat loss even quicker. So if I basically had my movements, had my cardio, done my deductions, and it worked for a few weeks, 4 to 5, even 6 weeks, and then I hit a brick wall, and you know what I thought? I don't want to take any more food and I don't want to do any more cardio. I'd probably be looking at using natural fat burners from a brand such as Conte Sport. They have a pre-tread. It's going to get that heart rate as high as possible. It's going to make that cardio that we're doing in the morning more efficient, and it's going to lead to a bigger rate of loss. So this is a video just setting you up for losing your first 10 pounds. Probably 100% certain if you follow this protocol and make these manipulations to these points, you're going to probably lose 8 to 10 pounds. I would probably say within the first 4 to 6 weeks of your holiday diet. So there's easy ways to get in shape if you know the protocols, and my goal now as a coach, serve, provide, and put out some content with value and purpose. So that's the way I would help a client lose his first 10 pounds if they're going on holiday.